Welcome back to the channel, guys. Hey, Olive, come on. Okay, Olive is gonna sit in the window for this video. She loves looking out the window. And Corey is gone, so temporarily we have Olive, her dog, for a minute. I wanted to make this video, 5 things that you may not know about me, because lately we have gotten a lot of new subscribers, and I want to just share more about myself for the new people here, for the people who have been here for a while. We mention just so many things on the channel. I feel like we're rather transparent and open people. So I did my best to try to go backwards and think about things that I had just never mentioned, things that you really wouldn't know about me, things we never discussed on the channel. Or if we ever did discuss them, maybe we just discussed them briefly. Gotta put my hair up, this is gonna drive me crazy. Okay. I come up with a list of 5 things that I felt like you probably really don't know these things about me, and I thought it would be fun to share. This is going to be one of a 3-part series. I'm going to do my part. Corey's going to share 5 things you may not know about her, and then we're going to do a part together. 5 things you may not know about us. Things that involve both of us. Experiences, events that we may have, went to, things that happened to us, I'm hoping that Olive will be nice while she sits in the window and looks out. She's probably looking for the cat. Binks. He loves to come up on the porch and taunt Olive. That is kind of his thing. So we're just going to jump right into this. I do want to say thank you so much to all of the new subscribers, to all of our people who have been here watching and following along. Thank you, and God bless you, because your support means everything to us. This is our job. This is our passion. We are able to stay at home and raise our babies because of your continued support of our channel, and we thank you so much for that. 5 things. Number 1, the first out of the list of 5 things is, in the 4th grade, I lost a whistling contest. But let me explain. I lost because I never entered the contest. Our 4th grade teacher said that she was going to have a contest to see who could whistle, probably the loudest. I think that would be the qualification for who would win the contest. Who could whistle the Andy Griffith Show theme the loudest. And she had shown us the Andy Griffith Show in class. A lot of us had probably just watched it at home. So everyone knew how the tune went. Everybody had a concept of what they would be whistling. And at that time, I taught myself how to whistle, because we're like 8. You think about 4th grade. These are 8-year-olds, maybe 9, probably 8-year-olds. And I was really proud that I taught myself how to whistle. I always wanted to be able to whistle. And I was like, I know I could probably win this contest because I can whistle really loud because I've been practicing on this. But I just was too shy and too embarrassed to enter the contest. And I'm like, man, I should have went and tested out my whistling skills for the 4th grade contest. I could have won. It would have been fun. And I don't know why I think back to that, but that's something that I wouldn't say haunts me, but something I think a lot about. Why did I not enter? Why did I let my embarrassment and what if I look stupid and what if I don't win? Why did I let that stop me? You can't let your fears or your concerns hold you back from your goals or something that you really want to do. And I learned that in the whistling contest. It's very inconsequential, but still, that's something you may not know. I really still think about that contest over 20 years ago. So that's the first thing. Number 2 on this list of 5 things is I thought I wanted to be a race car driver. I was rather enthralled and obsessed with dirt track racing. All race car driving, I thought, it's pretty cool, pretty interesting. And there's really a lot of categories and divisions that you could talk about when you think of racing, race cars, going at high speeds around a track. But this dirt track racing is a literal track made of dirt, an oval track, and there's a dirt track very close to my house. It's about 5 miles away, probably. As a crow flies, it's closer than that. In the season when they race, you can hear the cars here all the way at my house. It's very loud. Depends on the humidity. Sometimes they're harder to hear than others. Depends on what kind of cars are on the track. But my dad took Corey and I to a dirt track race when we were pretty young. I can't remember how young we were. And I would say we probably went a couple times before we were maybe 12. But by the time we were kind of old enough to know what was going on and not be like, oh, it's too loud and I'm scared, by the time we were really would be interested, I think we were maybe 12, maybe a little younger, I'm not sure. We loved it. It was our thing that we would do on the weekends. A lot of the times the track would do like every other weekend or every other Friday, because there's other tracks within an hour drive maybe or so of the area, and they would kind of alternate weekends, because a lot of the drivers, the pool of dirt track drivers to pull from wasn't all that large, and so it would be the same group of people here would go here next weekend, would go there the weekend after. So they kind of alternated weekends. The tracks, I guess, got together and communicated about that. So every other weekend we would come up here and get us a greasy racetrack hamburger and watch the cars go round and round in the dirt. I just thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. The sound and the smell. I guess that was fuel and dirt, and just the whole ambiance and experience of this dirt track racing. And I got really into it, and I started doing a little bit of research and watching YouTube videos and, just researching this crazy and insane thing of these cars, going 100 and something miles an hour on this tiny track, and dirt's flying everywhere. A lot of the people, they were locals, so I knew some of them. Other ones we didn't know, because they have series, what they call series, like a Lucas Oil series, an Outlaw series. There's some different ones where drivers will kind of sign a contract and almost belong to this series, and they all travel, and it's like a tour, and they go to different tracks to race, and it's their living. It's, they get paid to do that. There's money, and it's really interesting. But dirt track racing is very expensive, so very quickly I was like, yeah, I won't be doing this, because it costs way too much, and Mom and Dad are never going to let me do this because it's extremely dangerous. There's different classes of cars. I would say some of my favorite was probably the bigger cars, the late models, the limited late models they call it. That was the biggest car there. Not exactly by size, but I'm talking about like motor, horsepower, speed. And those are of course, the really expensive cars. But we just had a blast, and there was a man there that drove a car. I think he might have drove either a street car or a crate car. I can't remember. And he was a really nice man. His name was Bo. One time he would come up into the stands just to visit people, and when he wasn't racing, and he would bring silver dollars and give them out to the kids, because he was just really nice. So I had a whole, by the time I got done going to the racetrack, after years and years, I just had all these silver dollars that he'd given me. And he come up there and he said, you two, you're here every weekend. You must really like this. And we said, oh, we do. We love this. We want to be race car drivers. And we meaning Corey, my sister. And he said, you want to drive my car? And he was deadpan serious. And I said, what? He's like, you can drive my car if you want. You can hot lap it, or you could get out there, whatever you want to do. And I'm like, sir, we can't drive your car. We're like 12. We can't drive your car. But he was just 100% like, oh, you can. If you love doing this, this is your chance. Just get in that car, and take it a few laps. Or you could, even if you don't want to drive it during the hot laps, you could just drive it later, or I'll meet you up here at the track. And I'm like, no, we cannot drive your car, we don't even have permits. And Dad was like, oh, no, but he was just really, really serious about it. And he was nice, he's like, this is your race car debut. And I'm like, I lost the whistling contest. I lost my chance at my race car debut. Those cars have a high and a low gear. And it's really weird, because you put your foot on the clutch and keep it on the clutch to drive in low gear. And then in high gear, you get out on the track and you pop the clutch, push the clutch, put your car in high gear, and then you just go. And then you just drive it like just the gas and the brake. So it's kind of weird how that works. But anyway, I just thought that was so funny, him being 100%. And, he said that multiple times. It wasn't just that time. Oh, come on, you can drive my car. And we always told Dad, I'm like, Dad, you drive it. You could really drive it. We're children. We cannot drive this car. But I did think I wanted to be a race car driver. I thought maybe if I hang around the track, I can, learn and get into this. And of course it would have been more like me and Corey would have been driving what they call the pony cars, which is, basically just like a car off the street with a roll cage in it and a few other modifications. We used to collect when the race car drivers, they put their helmet on, they drive around the track, there's mud, right? Mud everywhere and dust. And so as the mud would collect on the visor of their helmet, their visor is full of these little plastic tear away strips. So, you know, one becomes too muddy to see, they just reach up there and pull, and they have a new fresh piece of like whatever that plastic lining is across their visor so they can see. And there would just be, those things were everywhere up there because they would fly out of the car and they couldn't pick them all up. And so we would pick them up and like keep them, you know, and use them as like a memento, you know, hold on to them. I had a whole folder of them at one point, and they were really, of course, dusty and dirty. And I was like, I wonder which one of these drivers, you know, had this on their visor and they were driving. And we made friends with a lot of the drivers. They were really nice. They'd let you look at their car. We would go into what they call the pits entrance, which that is just where all of the race car drivers bring their haulers, where they stage, where they stay for the race. And it used to be down in the center of the track so you could see everything going on. But now it's kind of up and off to the side. And I think a lot of tracks did that, maybe for safety, you know, concern. So we would make friends with people. We would go over there and look at their car and hang out in the pits and look at all the action, cars coming in and out and people working on their car and strategizing how we're going to win the race. It was just really cool. A boy we went to school with who was a year younger than us ended up being a race car driver for a little while, and he had a car and he was pretty good, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I did not become a race car driver, but I was really rather enthralled with all of it. So next on my list is fishing. You may not know it, but I used to make, for a small window of time, fishing lures that I would take to wherever I was fishing and catch fish with them. I, of course, was exposed to fishing when I was really little. Dad and his father had a boathouse out on Lake Fontana, and they would take us to the boathouse when we were really little. And they would just put a life jacket on us, throw us in the water, we'd bob and swim. We had a great time. And they would fish and cook hot dogs and hamburgers. And eventually they sold the boathouse. But anyway, so, you know, I knew about fishing when I was really young. My dad had a bass boat. I'd been on the lake. I'd seen the fishing. But I was probably grown-ish, you know, before I was like, okay, well, what's really going on here? And could I do this too? And then a couple of years ago, I really got into fishing, and I did a lot of fishing, and I really had a good time with it. And a lot of the places I was fishing at the time were single hook artificial bait designated places. Anybody can catch a fish on a redworm or a night crawler, right? Fish love those. But I enjoyed the challenge of being forced to use like a single hook artificial bait because it was kind of tricky to read the water and figure out what these fish would be interested in. And so I started doing some research on how could you make your own fishing lures, because lots of people do that. You know, lots of people fly fish, they tie flies. I don't fly fish. This is not my thing. I don't know a large amount about that because it just wasn't my thing. I felt like you could cover more water with a rod and a reel, and so I was just out there casting and reeling, you know, feeling like I wanted to catch every little spot of the water where it looked like a fish might be laying. And I was mostly trout fishing, but so I found out that you could buy like injection molds for plastic. You know, people do that. They make their own plastic lures. But I was like, that seems like a lot of work. And what could I do that would be easier? And I thought, spinners. I should make some inline spinners because I already work with metal. Being a silversmith, you know, that's my job. That's my business. So I should just try that and see if I could be any good at it. So I started looking at some of my spinners, like some of my MEP spinners, maybe my rooster tails, something like that, and kind of studying those and how could I replicate these in a way that would work, right? In a way that would be successful. So I come up with a few designs, and I would take them and test them to see if they would really spin in the water when you reeled them, because there was just some little different things that you would have to do as far as how you shape the metal, what gauge wire I was using, and how everything come together to make sure that that spinner actually really spun nicely. And of course it helped to be able to see it, but you could feel it, you know, on the other end of the line. You could really feel it spinning. So I come up with something that I thought was, I was like, this is going to be pretty good. I think this is going to work. And I made it out of silver and copper, mostly silver. And I took it to Fires Creek and I threw it in the water, you know, casted it out there and reeling that thing, and it was feeling great. I was like, this is nice. And I did that a few times, and I hung it up. And I hung it up right out in the middle of the water in a rather swift and deep place. And there was no way we could go get it. It was not safe, you know, and I was like, we are not going to risk anything dangerous in this river, in this creek, to get this fishing lure, and man, it was stuck. I did everything I knew to get it loose. I popped my line, I pulled, I put slack, I went out there as close as I could get to it and tried to reel it in, and it was just gone. And I loved that spinner. That fishing lure is long gone now. There's been a lot of big rain since then, and that was several years ago, so it definitely washed downstream. And I can only hope that somebody found it and continued to fish with it. The third thing that you may not know about me, I know I have mentioned briefly that I like to write on the channel, or that in the past I would do poetry. One time I got to go to the Poets Association here and read some of my poems at their little kind of get together. It was really fun. I was nervous, but it was really fun. I just enjoyed writing. You know, I'd write music. Of course, I've written some fiddle tunes. I've written a lot of music that I've never shared. Lots of it. Songs and tunes and just things to come up with, that creativity, you know, and things I should probably share, but just never have. And I also started writing some number of years ago short stories, just little stories that would just come to me that I would come up with. I wrote one in 2015. Well, I started one anyway, and I thought one day I'll get back around and maybe finish this up and maybe write some other ones. And even if I just published a little book for myself, you know, just put it all in a book that I could have and look back at. So I hope that you enjoyed that portion of a little short story. Writing is just something that was, you know, at that time of my life was really fun. It was really interesting. It was kind of an outlet for me. My jewelry business at that time hadn't become what it is now. And so I had more time to dedicate to writing. So the fifth and the last thing to end this video about 5 things you don't know about me is I was really heavily considering, while I was in high school, going into a branch of the military. I had some friends that were talking to recruiters. Eventually I figured out I don't think I can handle it. Not only am I a tender-hearted person, but I'm also I'm a really willful person, and I have a little problem with authority. And you know, the military is not a place for you if you can't get in line and follow orders, or if you don't like that. That is not the place you want to be. And so eventually I figured that out, but I also figured out I love my mama and I love my daddy, and I just don't think I can ever be away from them. So I'm still here living in their house, and I'm 30 almost. So there's that. The particular branch that I was interested in was the Navy. And I spent years just reading like military history, anything I could get my hands on concerning the military. I read biographies. I read historical accounts of each war that the United States was involved in. Just everything that I could kind of absorb, because it was very fascinating to me. Sad, of course, a lot of sad and tragic history, but interesting. I also, one year for Halloween, the charter school I went to for 1 year in town, in my 8th grade year, Corey and I went to the charter school. They had a Halloween thing every year. They called it the Monster Mash, and it was a really fun little Halloween party that they put on for the kids. Everybody really enjoyed it. The adults worked really hard. They would make like a little maze, like a little haunted house. It was amazing, the things that they did. But one year they did that, and I dressed up as a member of the military, if you will. It was wool, and it had a drop seat in the pants. That's what I'm referring to as a drop seat. It had this series of buttons, so if you were in a hurry and you needed a bathroom break, you could accomplish that quickly and then button the seat of the pants back up without ever having to remove, you know, the pants. And the buttons, I was like, oh man, these buttons are tricky. Anyway, I really enjoyed that. You know, I felt, you know, patriotic, of course, and special to think, you know, because this is like a real uniform. I wonder who wore this. And it must have been a petite man, because it pretty much fit me. So I still had it several years ago. I don't know where it is now. It may be gone. But I enjoyed that. If I find a picture of it, I'll put the picture in this video here. I'm not sure where it's at, but maybe I'll find a picture. I was very serious about the military. My grandfather was in the Marines. My other grandfather was in the Army. My great uncle was in the Army. I have a very long, extensive family history of men and women who served in the United States Armed Forces. So I just thought I could carry that on. And it was something, you know, that I felt very serious about. But I think I quickly learned, you know, I could really respect that and appreciate that and bring, you know, respect and awareness to it by sharing, you know, maybe some of my family history with the United States military with other people. But I just don't think I'm the kind of person that's cut out for it. If I had to, I'm sure I could do it. I'm sure I could stand up and just be able to do it. But at this time, it's a choice. It wasn't always that way, but at this time, it is a choice, and it's a very serious choice and commitment. So, yeah, I just, you know, really respected the military and was really very interested. My uncle is also very interested in military history, and I spent a lot of years reading literature about it. I had a little notebook I collected, and I would write down everything, just notes about the military, about different, you know, conflicts, about different strategies that they had, about definitions for equipment and a base of operation, just all sorts of things. A big thick binder where I would just go through it and look and think and ponder, and it did bring me a lot of joy, but it also brought me a lot of understanding and a lot of respect for our country and for the men and women who give so much, and some of them who give everything for me to be here today. I'm going to end this video here. Olive jumped off the couch and started barking and scared me to death. I think she saw Binks out the window, and it just totally threw off my video. I'm going to end it out here because of that. I hope you enjoyed learning 5 things that you may or may not have known about me. You probably didn't know. I feel like sharing these things makes Corey and I more relatable, and everybody needs to have somebody in their life that's relatable, that understands kind of who they are, maybe what they're going through. And I always want in our videos for us to come across as, you know, everyday, normal, average people, because I'm just your everyday person, just, you know, living a pretty everyday life. I would never want to be thought of as pretentious or like some kind of special person on YouTube. I really want to stress the fact that, you know, you can find happiness and joy in your everyday life as just being an everyday average person. And of course, all my joy comes from God. But anyway, thank you for watching. Keep your eye out for the second and third parts of this video series for Corey's 5 things and for our 5 things together. We are thinking about you guys on our YouTube family. Thank you for all of our new subscribers. We're always praying for you, and we're always looking forward to filming our next video, bringing it here for you guys. God bless you, God keep you, and we will be catching you at the next video.